podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to another Tennis Unfiltered podlet. You may remember these from such tournaments as, sound like Kent Brockman now, the US Open, Wimbledon, the French Open, Roland Garros. Yes, I'm back. I haven't got Calvin or George because it's a weird time of day and, since we've all become obsessed with reminding people what time of day it is in Melbourne, it's currently 1:45, which I'm considering early because last night I got home at 3:30 and the night before I got home at 7. So this feels like something of a bonus because for once Andy Murray didn't go to 5 sets. It of course wasn't the result that he wanted, it wasn't necessarily the result lots of other people wanted, certainly wasn't the result that they wanted on the Margaret Court Arena, but that was what they got. Andy Murray beaten 6-1, 6-7, 6-3, 6-4, 4 sets. It was 3 hours and 29 minutes. It was a pretty remarkable match in some ways because I have to say I went and watched him hit on what was Friday, and he did 15 minutes hitting on Margaret Court. He barely moved. The hitter would occasionally stray a little, and Murray would kind of make that noise, as I think I mentioned the other day, and then he would, try and hit it. But that was pretty indicative. And the first set, he lost the first set in 29 minutes, 6-1. And, it was like watching me try and walk around the office the day after Sunday League or something. It wasn't embarrassing because it's like we all knew what he'd been through. But we were all looking at each other in the press box. And, I was looking at Murray's worst ever Grand Slam defeat, which was... Well, he's got 2 actually, they're joint. He only won 6 games against Stan Wawrinka in French Open 2020 and also against Rafa Nadal in the semi-final of the French Open 2014. And we all thought that was in danger because he just looked completely wrecked. He could barely serve, he couldn't really run. It was horrible, really. Someone said to him afterwards, do you think if you'd had a bit more sleep and a bit more rest, it would have been better? And fair play to him, he said it's impossible to say. To be honest, I don't think, 7 or 8 hours would have made that much difference. He's been through a lot. He's got a 35-year-old body. As everyone keeps saying, he's got a metal hip. And that's blooming hard. He also said afterwards that his hip... he never says his hip hurts. I don't think it does. He also didn't say that his legs felt that bad. He said he had 7 or 8 blisters that he needed to get drained and treated. That's why he only slept for 3 hours after his match against Kokkinakis. And then he was spotted again at Melbourne Park while I was certainly still asleep by the time he got there. And he came in and had them treated by the podiatrist and then went back to bed, I think, actually. I know he did. He went back to his hotel and then slept a bit more. But, not ideal. And, he looked it massively. And when he was 6-1, 4-2 down, I think we all thought, here we go. And then he just sort of started warming up. It took him an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes, but he started getting the crowd into it. He was doing that thing where he picks bits of the crowd to really engage with, and it gets him going. The backhand started firing. He started just trying to hit his forehand as hard as he could, and that helped at times. Bautista Agut got a bit tight and chucked away the break. He got broken to love. It was all sort of going his way, and all of a sudden he was ahead in the set, and then he gets a tie break, and then, all of a sudden he's got the set, and it's 1 set all. And, we're all sitting there going, here we go again. It's going to be another late night on Margaret Court, and Andy Murray rolling back the years. The set point that he saved in the tiebreaker. He saved 2 set points in the tiebreaker, but the one the first one, was a 22-shot rally, and ordinarily you'd say, Murray's got a good chance of winning those, but you felt that on a day like today, the long rallies weren't going to go his way because of his ailment. And then when he got a set point, he missed his first serve. There was an audible groan from the crowd rather than from him. And then he hit a 73-mile-an-hour second serve. It didn't matter because he out-rallied Bautista Agut and won the point and won the set and just kind of stood there and went, yeah, this is it. And I think the third set, the first half of the third set was pretty insane. there were at least 2 points when the ball went over both players' head on more than one occasion. My match notes just say 1-1, 30 love, insanity, and then 2-2 deuce, more insanity. And they're both those points, by the way. If you can find them, I'll try and stick them on social media, but go back and watch them because they're completely insane. But in the end, Bautista Agut took the set, and it was kind of his set. I think he only made 4 unforced errors, and that that's his game, isn't it? He is a real wall, and yeah, he did his best to outgrind Murray, and he knew that probably if he stuck around long enough, this guy wasn't going to have it in his legs, and I think that was probably true in the end. He just, he would make unforced errors because he wasn't bending enough, and he said afterwards his lower back was in pieces, and the serve speeds, he was down. I think his average first serve speed was down something like 20 miles an hour on what he did in the first match of the tournament against Berrettini. So he was 124 miles an hour average against Berrettini. By the time he got to Agut, it was 106, and similarly second serve went from 102 to 87. So pretty clear that he wasn't, able to give all of himself in terms of serving. He even said, actually, the first couple of points of the game were worse, but once I'd been up from the chair for a couple of minutes, I should say, then it got better. Honestly, the thing that really gave it away to me, and probably in fact I know because I was talking to people on Twitter, wasn't reflected on TV, is that he was so tired, and it was the bits between points that were giving that away. I've never seen him move so slowly between points. He was very fortunate not to get a time violation on return of serve, which you can get because Bautista Agut was repeatedly having to wait for him. And as you know, the game should be played at the server's speed. He was so slow getting off the chair, every time he missed a first serve, his whole body would just sort of sink, and then he'd have to regather himself. It's probably just in his head going, God, I've got to hit another serve now, and my body's really hurting. And he couldn't hit the kick serve because of his back, so that wasn't helping either. And yeah, then it gets to match point, and he's done, and there was a very cold handshake between him and Bautista Agut. He only did one answer in English, Bautista Agut, in the press conference, but he included in it, Murray knows well how to play a Grand Slam match. He understands the game very well. He knows how to play with a crowd, how to play with the nerves of the opponent. And I think what he's referring to there, well, quite apart from anything else, is when Bautista Agut was serving for the match, Murray decided that 2 points away from the end of the match was the time to start complaining about when Nico was starting the serve clock, and that he should have been giving him time violations. It was shithousery, quite frankly. It was Jensen Brooksby kind of stuff, but it didn't work. Bautista Agut served it out, and fair play to him. Difficult to be that guy. We always say it's difficult to play an injured player because it can be tricky to put them away, and it sort of messes with your mind. It's difficult to be the underdog. It's difficult to have a rowdy crowd, and he dealt with all that really well. So credit to him, and he's got a real opportunity now to go through the draw, because the bottom half is a complete mess, apart from Novak Djokovic, really. So, we've got Bautista Agut versus Tommy Paul in the fourth round, and the winner of that plays either Ben Shelton or JJ Wolf. Bautista Agut will look at that and say this is the best chance to get to a second semi-final, because remember, he made a Wimbledon semis back in 2019, incredibly, that he's ever going to get. He's not going to get a better opportunity than this, so we'll see how that evolves. The other big match of the day was, I suppose, the other big match. I've barely talked about the women's tournament at all this week, but all the stories have been in the men's, and that's just the way it's been. The Novak Djokovic Grigor Dimitrov match promised much. Calvin, as you will have all heard, is pretty clear that he thinks Novak Djokovic's injury is a total nonsense. Many Novak fans will tell you that he's got a really bad injury and is doing brilliantly to play through it. I think the truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in between. He, again, was quite heavily strapped on his left thigh today, and he had a medical timeout at the end of the first set. He basically didn't celebrate winning a very tight first set, It was 9-7 in the breaker, and I think it was something like an 80-minute first set. I haven't got the number exactly in front of me. In fact, yes, it was a 79-minute first set, and he barely celebrated, and then called for the trainer. So that looked like he was in real trouble. But I mean, he then only loses 7 more games and wins in straight sets, and it's like, well, you know, how injured can you be if you're doing that and still throwing yourself around? You know, with Murray, there were things that he was unable to do because of his physical state. There were shots he was unable to hit, and with Djokovic, there doesn't seem to be really any limitations. Like, when he's in open stance, moving into the backhand side seems to be a little bit of a struggle, but I've still seen him do the big slide and everything, and yeah, just it's very, very strange. You know, maybe he could be hamming it up. I mean, there were some comedy falls, you know, which were a bit... I mean, look, I've just said how difficult it is to play an injured player, and Djokovic is always looking for an edge, and if that edge is pretending to be injured all the time so that your opponent gets confused and it messes with their head, then maybe that's what the greatest player of all time has decided is his latest edge. Not that he really needs it, but so be it. People might come at me for that, but that's what I think, and I've watched him quite a lot this week, albeit not a lot today because I was on court for Murray and had Djokovic on the laptop in front of me. So, I mean, who knows in the end? Only he and I suppose a select few around him will know, and you'll never necessarily get the truth. He said he kind of went up and down feeling physically with his leg. He said, someone asked him afterwards, what's your experience with the injury and how close were you to potentially pulling out before the tournament? He said, well, I didn't want to pull out because I wanted to see how it's going to feel on the court. So the first match was good. The second match I struggled a lot. There were a couple of moments today when it was really bad, but I managed to survive and kind of pull through. I'll take it match by match. I don't know what awaits, but I do hope and have faith for the best. He's going to play Alex de Minaur in the next round, who will obviously have a home crowd behind him, and the guy runs forever. Like, you know, you're not going to get Grigor Dimitrov firing forehands wide and long and, well, backhands really. Someone made me laugh by messaging me saying Dimitrov's backhand is borderline unprofessional. It's just a funny term of phrase that made me giggle on Instagram. James Gray Sport on Instagram, by the way. And the podcast is on Instagram too, so you should follow that as well. It's Tennis Unfiltered Pod on Instagram, so go find that and give us a follow. Be very appreciative. Yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how Djokovic goes against de Minaur. I should talk about the women's draw because it is just as worthy of being talked about, albeit it has also completely fallen apart. It feels like one of the most chaotic Grand Slams in a while. My pick for an upset in the newsletter, the newsletter called Inside Tennis, which you can sign up for. If you go to inews.co.uk/my-account and then scroll to the bottom, you can sign up for the Inside Tennis newsletter that I write every day during the slams and then weekly outside the slams mostly. I picked Magda Linette as my upset over number 19 seed Ekaterina Alexandrova. She indeed beat her in straight sets. A little bit of a struggle getting over the line. I was sat about 12 feet away from the Polish radio booth in the media centre, and he was getting very excited because she had a match point at 3-5 and saved it, and the guy just stayed live because he was just doing like hits. He wasn't live commentating, and the station clearly went, well, she's going to serve for the match now, so we'll just stay with you. And he was getting louder and more excited as time went on, and when she finally got over the line, we all cheered because it would mean he would stop talking, and we were trying to, write Murray copy. But she's through. She's going to play Caroline Garcia, who had a bit of a scare today against Laura Siegmund. I have said before how much I like Caroline Garcia. She's had quite a tricky little draw. She had Leylah Fernandez in the second round, who had beaten Elise Cornet with ease, so that wasn't easy, and she beat her in straight sets. Laura Siegmund can be a tricky opponent, and she dismissed her eventually. She lost the first set 6-1, and I think it was a breakdown in the second as well, but came through quite nicely, and I think quietly is probably someone to keep an eye on for this title. I mean, look, Iga Swiatek is the runaway favourite, but the bottom half, whoever comes out the bottom half, I mean, who knows? But Garcia is going to play Linette, and then either Zhang Shui or Karolina Pliskova, and I don't think she will be afraid of either of those players. And then you're going to get one of Bencic, Vekic, Fruitova or Sabalenka. And again, I mean, Caroline Garcia, she fears nothing as far as I can tell anyway, but in particular, I think she shouldn't really be afraid of any of those players. Great news to have Linda Fruitova through, sound the Czech teenager klaxon. She is 17 years old. I'm reliably informed she's not even the best Fruitova, because her younger sister, Brenda, who is 15, believe it or not, is, they say, better. She actually went out in the first round, but she did get through qualifying to get there before losing to Sasnovich, I think. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, Czech women's tennis, I don't know what they're doing right, but they just keep producing superstars. They've got Linda Noskova as well, remember, who Emma Raducanu played at the French Open. She's very talented. There's also a girl, I can't remember her name, but I've seen a couple of people talking about her, and very good people to talk about tennis, talking about her in high regards. I think it's Belka or Selka. I apologise for not knowing that name properly, but I mean, honestly, there will be yet more coming off the block in the next couple of years. Absolutely no doubt about that, because these Fruitovas are very talented. Sarah Bejlik is her name. There you go. And she did qualify, actually, and lost in the first round. So she's currently the Czech number 12, I think. But that will change, I'm sure. So, anyway, to come back to it, Linda Fruitova's now got Donna Vekic in the fourth round. And, you know, fancy that. Unseeded player in the fourth round, you've got to take that and say, yeah, we'll go. But the pick of that bottom half is probably Sabalenka Bencic, which is on Monday, Sunday night in the UK. So maybe talk about that separately. In terms of the matches coming up on Sunday, Ostapenko Goff is a belter. That's unfortunately going to be overnight in the UK if you're listening. I think it's something like 2:30 a.m. GMT, which probably isn't ideal, but will be a great match, I hope, because two big hitters, and, well, you know, Ostapenko's so watchable because she's just mental. And similarly, albeit maybe not so mental, but certainly so fired, Swiatek versus Rybakina, which again is going to be a mid-afternoon one here, so overnight in the UK. But you know, watch it back. Why not? I think it'll be a really good match, and I think Swiatek will come through it. But you know, it'll be the first time she's been tested. She's barely dropped a game, never mind a set, en route to the fourth round. And I think Rybakina, I thought conditions might not suit her here, you know, because it just tend to be a bit slower, but the courts themselves aren't slow. The balls just aren't really taking spins. It's not really reacting to the court, but I think Rybakina can hit through it and it'll be fine. So hopefully that's a really good contest, because I think it's a really intriguing matchup. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that one pans out. The other women's matches tomorrow are Pegula versus Krejcikova, which, again, I think Pegula might well win this title, and she's been basically ball perfect so far. But Krejcikova is a bit of a challenger, and she's clearly fit again. I think she's sorted her head out. You know, remember her leaving in tears from the French Open last year, which was very sad. But yeah, she seems to be back on track. And the other one is Azarenka versus Zhu. I don't know a lot about Lin Zhu. I've seen her play a bit. I saw her beat Teichmann, or at least I saw a set of it, but I don't really know a lot about her. So another Chinese player doing really well. That there is a bit of a revolution going on in Chinese tennis at the moment. So if she beats Victoria Azarenka, I will make a concerted effort to find out a bit more about her. Meanwhile, in the men's draw, the best match tomorrow, I think, pretty clearly is Tsitsipas versus Sinner. That's got Rod Laver, 7pm, so that'll be 8am over in the UK on Sunday morning. Good for you to go and watch. There's also Hurkacz versus Korda, Nishioka Khachanov, and Auger-Aliassime versus Lecheka. I can't really remember how to say his name. He's 21, he's Czech, he beat Cam Norrie in 5 sets, and I think he might beat Felix Auger-Aliassime, who's yet to win a match in straight sets. So, you heard it here first. So that's my pick in the newsletter today, if you haven't already read it, because it's only just gone out. Yeah, there's loads going on. I will try and do a few more mini-pods over the next week as things get a little bit more quiet, because there are fewer matches. I'll get George on a bit as well. I'll get Calvin on. Maybe get some mystery guests from the Australian Open as well. Most importantly, just come back and hear whoever is here.
Sports Social Podcast Network.